Alright, what's up guys? Today we're going to do a video on cleaning my AR. So last week Kevin and I were out coyote hunting. Last week, 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
whatever it was. But I purposely didn't clean it, and I know that might upset some people, but because I knew we wanted to do this video, and so I'm just going to go through basic disassembly cleaning. It's not going to be like a yearly PM on it or anything. I'm just going to do a basic cleaning. Going to clean the barrel, take the bolt apart, clean it, brush out the lower receiver, and that's what we're going to do. So here we go. Okay guys, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the scope, because when I take it apart, it's just, I don't want to bang it on anything or bump it and knock it off. So I'm just going to take it off first. So there's 2 screws. And voila, there's that. Let me come off to the side. So the next thing, I'm going to take the sling off. That's just as simple as that. Okay, so now before I do anything else, I'm going to make sure that it's clear and safe to work on. So I don't have a magazine in it right now, so we know that's clear. I have the bolt locked to the rear, so nothing in the chamber. We can make sure. Alright, that's clear. So I'm going to let that down. So to release the bolt, simply, that locks it back. You can either pull it back and let it fly, which I don't recommend, or just ride it forward, and that's that. So when you go to load it, you have that locked to the rear, put the magazine in, and then you hit this button and it closes the bolt. I know I just said not to do that, but demonstration purposes, I wanted to go ahead and do it. So first thing you need to do is you have one here and one here. So these are your takedown pins. You can see those. One here, one here. So we're going to remove the rear one first. Pull that out. And then the front one, I need to use my screwdriver here to push this out. Pull that out. And now you have your separated lower and upper receiver. So the first thing you do when you get these separated, to remove your bolt, grab the charging handle, pull that to the rear, bolt comes out, this drops out. Now, you see these 2 little notches on this charging handle here? When you slide this in, if you can see in there, it's notched. So when you put your charging handle in there, it goes in and then it goes down in that notch and drops in. So you have to find that to pull it out. Okay, so now we have our separated pieces. So the first thing I always like to do is disassemble the bolt and clean it. So first thing you want to do, pull this little pin right here. This is a firing pin retainer. So I don't have any fingernails right now. So that simply pulls out like that. And then if you turn your bolt upside down, bang it a couple times, there's your firing pin. Next thing, the bolt itself. So you have a bolt cam pin. So this right here, turn it 90 degrees, that guy comes out of there, and then your bolt comes out. So now your bolt's disassembled. So your gas tube, this, a lot of people like to take a pipe cleaner down through there just to clean it out. This is what operates your weapon. So this is a gas operated weapon. So you can't really see it because the handguards are on here, but there's a gas tube that runs up and through right here. And then when this is closed, that meets up with that, and that's what cycles the weapon. So it uses the gas from the barrel to actually operate the action. So So the first thing we're going to do with this is take a patch, put a little bit of barrel solvent on it, powder solvent, whatever it's called. Again, I don't get real super crazy when I clean, only because it's really just carbon. It's not like anything that's, now if you're using it in like the sand or that kind of stuff, it's good to get that out, because that stuff, obviously it's sand, so it's abrasive, but carbon's really not that big of a deal if it's taken care of every once in a while. So I just wipe that down. This is your extractor, so this is the part that grabs the shell, this little guy right here, which you can take that apart too, but I don't really, only because there's really not much that can get under that. But you just take that pin out and the extractor comes off of there, but that part grabs the shell, and that's what grabs the new one and throws the old one out. Alright, so we got that wiped down. Firing pin, same thing. Just give it a wipe. Stuff comes off of that pretty easily. Most parts in an AR are aluminum, so they clean up really well. The bolt is steel, however. So now if you see here, this kind of stuff, I guess dirt just fell down in there or whatever, because mine does not have a I can't even think of what it's called, but some of them have a little cover that you can flip up here that covers off the chamber. Mine doesn't, so it gets a little bit of dirt in there every once in a while. But so this, I like to take the toothbrush, go through these grooves here, just to make sure that's clean and all that stuff's out of there. This actually doesn't look too terrible. It's not real super dirty. Just make sure all that's clean. These markings in here are for if you have a rifle with a forward assist, which I don't have either. That would stick out of the upper receiver right here. It would be something that, if your bolt, sometimes the bolt doesn't close all the way, it gets hung up like the last little bit, and you can use the forward assist to push, and it catches these notches and closes it the rest of the way. Mine doesn't have that, but this is a cheaper upper receiver. I think I got it for like $300, but anyhow. So we're gonna do the same thing with this. Just take a patch, give it a little dab. It's a lot of a dab. So just gonna wipe it. See, there's not a whole lot coming off of that. So one thing I like to do with this, just something I guess I learned maybe in the Army, is take your toothbrush and rub the patch around in there. Same thing up at this end where your bolt goes in. Gets that nice and clean. Do the same thing on this side. Okay. Pretty nice and clean. So now there's an old saying in the Army that your weapon's not clean until your patch is. I don't live by that rule, obviously, if they're pretty dirty, but alright, so that's that for the bolt. Now we can put that back together. I don't generally get too wrapped up about oiling everything either, just because oil simply just attracts dirt, and I might put a little squirt on here and there, but for the most part I don't get too worried about it. So now to assemble that bolt goes back in. Those holes need to be lined up. If you can see that. Cam pin goes back in there. Sometimes this can be a little bit of a pain to get lined up, just because of the angle it comes out at. That goes back in there, and then you have to make sure you turn that, because that is what your firing pin goes through when you put it back in there. So little trick here, put your hand around it, drop that down in there. So once that's like that, give it a little push, that's in there. And then your firing pin, retaining pin goes back in there. Now see how that's not going in all the way? That means my firing pin is not lined up correctly. So, and that just simply is a matter of pulling this either in and out a little bit, and then make sure that's tight and won't come out, so that's good. And then just make sure it moves back and forth, everything's good there. Okay, so the bolt's done. Now next thing I like to do is the barrel. So I like to clean out the this is where a lot of the dirt, I think most of the time, ends up being, is in the chamber and the breech. So we take another patch. This is where a lot of the dirt gathers, just because, like I said, I don't have a dust shield, which is what that's called. So I just take this, go in all these little grooves in here. So it's actually not too bad, but you don't get a whole lot of carbon in this space, only because there's really no detonation going on at this part. That's all in the bolt and the barrel, and this is more just dirt. So when I do this part, I like to do my toothbrush trick again. So I'll take that patch, put it down in that groove, which is where your charging handle slides, and just give that a little bit of a run through there, just to get any dirt that might be in there. And then I'll simply do the other side of the chamber the same way. Take that, clean out those grooves. That doesn't look too bad. So now if you can get close in there on the breech, see there's a lot of dirt kind of gunked up right in here around the breech there. So that's where we bring in our breech brush, some people call it bore brush. So I take this, and actually, okay, so bore brush on a rod. So we take this in here, push that up into there, give it a couple twists, try to get all that build up gunk that's stuck in there out. Okay, then, so that stuff's all kind of laying here loose now. I'll take the little stiff bristles on this toothbrush and just kind of brush away that stuff that pulled out of there. Toothbrush is definitely a friend when cleaning an AR, because there's a lot of little grooves and stuff that just where dirt gathers. Okay, so I get that brushed out. Now I'm going to do my little patch trick again. Actually, I have one here that's not too bad. We'll take that right there and just go through all these little grooves just to get the loose stuff. Alright, well, that looks much better. If you want to look close in there now, there's no more dirt in the corners and all those grooves are cleaned out. There's paint in there, which is what it kind of looks dirty because I had this rifle painted at one point. But, so that's pretty clean. Now the money maker, the barrel. So I have a barrel snake rod. I like this better than a regular cleaning rod. So I'm going to put the barrel brush on first, just to loosen all the stuff up that's in the barrel. And then once you get all the stuff pulled out of the rifling, then you can take your patch and just pick all that stuff up. So the easiest thing I found to do with this is run it through the back. And then you just grab it. Give it a pull. Usually 1 or 2 pulls, and that's about all it takes. It's pretty small rifling, so it doesn't gather a whole lot of stuff unless you're using it really hard. Now this again is going to put a little debris back in your breech just from the stuff that pulls out, but you can just kind of take your patch and put that in there again. Alright, so that's off. Now, if I can figure out what I did with my patch attachment. It's right here. So we'll take it, put another dab of our old Hoppy's number 9. Run that through here. And I know most of you guys probably know how to clean a gun. It's just, I thought this would be a good video only because maybe some people never cleaned an AR or never used one. They're really simple. One thing I think a lot of people really like about them is they're super customizable. They're really easy to maintain, take apart, assemble, disassemble. You don't have to be a gunsmith to do a lot of things on them, which is nice. Okay, and that actually doesn't look too bad. That's pretty clean. So the one thing you can do to see how clean your barrel is kind of just hold it up to light. So another thing you can do is use one of these, a bore reflector or a bore light, some people call them. Say you take the long end, stick it in there like that, and then you need a flashlight of some sort. So I'm gonna get my phone, turn the flashlight on. You just really need to get that kind of close to it, and then you look in the barrel, it lights it up for you. That looks nice and clean, and that's that. Nice little tool. It's nicer if you have an actual flashlight, only because it's not as awkward to hold. But okay, so that's it for the upper receiver. So now we can take our bolt. So you see this hole in the charging handle? That goes over your gas tube. So the easiest way is to put this in first and just kind of get it started. Also, when you put this in, that has to be forward like that. It won't go in like this. Okay. So charging handle goes in like that. Bolt needs to be out. Simply slides in there. That's it. So your bolt is back in. And we can set this aside. So the lower receiver. So you have your trigger group, trigger assembly group as it's called. You have to clean your magazine well. And then you have your buffer spring in here. So take this out, push down on this little pin here. It's easier to do if you have like my screwdriver here. So push down on that a little bit. Push this pin in. And then your buffer spring comes out. So you can separate this just like that. All this really needs is just kind of like a quick wipe. Run it through the rag. And then the buffer itself, just wipe it off. Put this back together. And then all you do, just like that. That's that. Now, the magazine well. Another place where a lot of dirt gathers. If you can see in there, there's quite a bit of loose dirt in there. So I like to take a rag, just kind of stuff that in there, push it down through, do that a couple times. And then I'll take my toothbrush, clean out the part where it goes up onto the upper receiver, because if not, it gets kind of rough when you try to take it apart when it swivels. Just kind of give it a brush, make sure there's no more loose dirt on there, in there. And that's pretty much it for that. Not a whole lot required in there. Just want to get all that dirt and make sure your magazine release mechanism here moves nice. That's not gunked up. Give it a little brush there with it open. Alright, now this part in here, a lot of guys put all kinds of oil and stuff down in here. This is one of the places that like gathers the most dirt. Why, I don't really know. It just seems that way. So what I like to do is, I don't have any now, but I'll use air in a can, something, and really just blow this out and pretty much leave it at that. So if you do want to clean it, put it on semi, pull down on this, pull the trigger. Now you can get at your springs and your latch. You can blow that out. If you notice, there's hardly any dirt down in there. Really, every once in a while I'll take a Q-tip, put just a little dab of oil on here, which I've already done, and just put a little bit of a dab on those springs, and that's really about it, because you don't want a whole lot of dust gathering down in there. And that's all you have to do to reset that. Push that down, it gets the trigger catch, and that's pretty much it. So the other thing I'll do in here, take a Q-tip, these little corners back in here where there's a lot of dirt, I'll take this in there, give it a brush, just to get any loose dirt that's laying down in there. See, really not a whole lot down in there. Just like I said, this is one of the parts I try to avoid using oil, just because, or a whole lot of oil I should say. It does need a little bit, but, and that looks pretty good. So the magazine release here and your bolt catch. So I'll take the toothbrush again, get all this loose gunk that's kind of built up in here, brush it out. Get rid of all that, and then take my Q-tip that has just a little bit of oil on it. Give it a brush here, there. Now I will put two tiny little dabs, just because this is like a pivot point. right there. Now you see how little bit of oil that is right there? You would be surprised how much dust will gather right there at that spot where that oil's at. So with that excess, what I like to do is just wipe as much of it off the outside as I can. It's one thing I always disagreed with when we cleaned our weapons in the Army. They want everything just completely like covered in oil, which then you'll see when you go to the range, this all has sand gathered around it. The bolt's covered in sand. It's just, I like to use the least amount of oil possible. See how nice that works now with just that little bit of oil. Perfect. So now, everything's clean. The only thing I forgot to do, which I can do now, is inside here where your bolt slides back and forth, I like to put, I'll put one dab here, one here. I'll do that on both sides. And then just kind of take my rag, just kind of spread it a little bit up the sides here. And that's really all you need. If you've ever heard the saying, a little dab will do you, this is a spot where that's true. So now, we'll do our front pin first. All right, that's in. So now we'll close this. Front pin back in. Now it's back together. Now once you've taken everything apart and put it back together, you really should do a functions check. So to do that, put it on safe. Doesn't fire. So now put it on fire. So now you keep the trigger depressed, re-cock the bolt, let the trigger out and listen for it to click. Squeeze it again. Now you can let it go. Put it back on safe. And there it is. So that's pretty much it. Cleaned it, made sure we did a functions check. Now, some people like to clean out these little grooves in the flash hire. I don't really think there's much in there, only because I don't really shoot this very often. So that's pretty much it. If you guys have any other things you think I forgot or something else I should do, let us know in the comments. But that's pretty much my basic cleaning that I do to my AR. Some guys like to, once a year, take that whole trigger group apart in there, clean it all out real good. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe to our channel if you think it's something you want to do, and we'll see you guys later.